Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi wa ba'd. We had this session in which, inshallah, on the weekends we will speak with regards to the stories of the prophets. So during the week it will be the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we will speak about. But on the weekends we will choose a prophet and we will speak about the life of a particular prophet. And inshallah, today and tomorrow we have chosen to speak about the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. One question as to, before we sit, that we wish to understand as to why is it that we study the stories and the lives of the prophets? What's the reason behind it? What's the wisdom behind it? There are two major reasons for studying any prophet or a life of any individual. And first and foremost, it's for the purpose of ibrah. It's for the purpose of lessons, so that we can learn lessons from their life. And second, وَتَثْبِيتًا, it's so that we could become steadfast. We could become stronger in the path that which we have taken. I would request that the brothers, Asfandiyar, Asfand, to cut the noise, inshallah, because I can't hear myself. If anyone speaks, I go quiet. So there's two reasons. Al-ibra, so that we could learn a lesson from it. Second is tathbitan, so that we could become steadfast in the path that which we've taken. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and all these stories that we mentioned to you with regards to the prophets, it's so that we could strengthen your heart. It's so that we could strengthen your mission. It's so that you at heart could become an individual that even although problems, difficulties come upon you and you feel like giving up, these stories are لِكَيْ نُثَبِّتْ فُؤَادَكَ, so that we could strengthen your heart. وَجَاءَكَ فِي هَذِهِ الْحَقِّ, Allah says, and within these stories there is truth to be told. وَمَوْعِظَةٌ, and there is much to be learned from it. There is a maw'idha, there's lessons in it. وَذِكْرَى لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and it is a reminder for the believers. So there's a number of lessons that Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned in this ayah, that the reason we study any story, or we listen to anybody's biography, or we listen to anybody's life story, is so that we could strengthen our hearts. And second is to come to know the truth. Third, it's good words in our ears. And fourth, it's a reminder for us as believers. With that, we will find that many individuals, when they are in a very dark stage in their life, they're in a very difficult stage in their life, listening to these stories of the prophets, it gives them light. It gives them a pathway, a tunnel in which they could see. And then from that, we find also that the prophets came at times when there was much strangeness to good, meaning the fact that they would come to societies, villages, people, countries, in which you would find the fact that people would find goodness to be ajib, to be strange. That when you would do ibadah or you would do something of good, that you would become a stranger in their sight. Even now in today's times, in times of ghurba, we find the fact that individuals, when they practice their deen, they are individuals that are looked down upon. And people talk about them, and people say things about them. And by listening to these stories, we are able to strengthen ourselves, empower ourselves, to carry out ourselves in the mission that which Allah Azza wa Jal has given us, and that is to call to Allah Azza wa Jal. And one of the things we find is the fact that when we go through difficulties in life, when we have many problems and trials that have befallen us, then coming across the likes of the stories of the Anbiya, we find the fact that our problems are nothing in comparison to them. So we find the fact that in our hearts we find tranquility in these stories. So we see the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, He spoke about many prophets. He spoke about Adam, He spoke about Ibrahim, Noah, Lot, so many prophets that He spoke about, and the major reason behind it was to strengthen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah says, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ. And you would find, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that in these stories that there are lessons to be learned. لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ مَا كَانَ حَدِيثًا يُفْتَرَى. It is not comments, it's not stories that which are lies or made up. وَلَكِنْ تَصْدِيقٌ. Rather, these are truthful things, truthful events that took place بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ, between your hands. وَتَفْصِيلٌ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. And it is in detailed events of that which happened. وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. And they are guidance and it is blessing for the ones who believe in Allah. So we said that we will first and foremost mention with regards to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the time in which Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam came, there was a religion present in that which involved shirk. There was a religion in which involved shirk with Allah. And this religion was the fact that individuals would be worshipping idols and they would be worshipping stones and trees so that they could become closer to Allah Azza wa Jal through it. And in this time, Allah Azza wa Jal sent Ibrahim alayhi salam al-Khalil, the friend of Allah. And we know the fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was born in Babil, as some of the historians say, and Babil is to be found in Iraq. And we found that Ibrahim alayhi salam, that when he came to these individuals as a nation, that he was a very young man. He wasn't an individual who was old, or he was, in his 40s or 50s or 30s, but rather he was a young man, something along the lines of 20, the early 20s, early 30s, and so forth. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He says that when we gave Ibrahim alayhi salam this nabuwah, when we gave him this work of calling the people to Allah Azza wa Jal, before that, Allah Azza wa Jal, as a kid, as a young man, Allah says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ الرُّشْدَ. That we had granted Ibrahim alayhi salam this smartness, this ability to be able to tell right from wrong. مِن قَبْلِ وَكُنَّا بِهِ عَالِمِينَ. And we knew of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his rushd and being able to tell the difference between right and wrong. So you would find individuals within society sometimes that we see that there are certain individuals that might be smarter than others. Or you would find one wise and the other one may not be as wise. And you would find some that are able to tell the difference between good and others aren't able to tell the difference between good and bad as much. But Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was a very clever individual, where Allah Azza wa Jal had placed in his heart the tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah Azza wa Jal had placed in his heart iman, faith in Allah Azza wa Jal, where he understood that these people who are worshipping these idols, that they are not individuals who are upon cleverness, or they're not individuals that are upon rushd, who are able to tell the difference between right and wrong, but rather he saw them individuals who are foolish. He saw them as individuals who are not clever of what they're doing. So he, as any of the guidance that is given to us from the deen, that we always start with the anbiya, we start with our aqrab fal aqrab, we start with our families. The talking is really disturbing. Amir, speak to them, please. So he's a man, young individual. Allah's granted him with the ability of rushd. He's able to tell the difference between right and wrong. He's upright, he's straightforward, and he talks haqq. Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed him with tawheed. Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed him with iman. And this is sometimes we find that with individuals when they are young, that you would find them to be upon this state, and this is from the tawfiq of Allah. So he started with al-aqrab fal-aqrab. He started with his family first. So he said to his father, and his father has filled his house with stones, and he had filled them up with idols to be worshipped. So he approaches his father and he gives him a statement which he wants him to start thinking. And he says to him, and the usloob and the way in which he says it to him is a manner in which it has mercy within it. And he says to him, Ya abati, lima ta'budu ma la yasma' wa la yubsir wa la yughni anka shay'a. And he says to him very plain words, but they are hard hitting upon one's mind if he is to ponder over them. And here he says, Ya abati, O my father, why is it that you worship something that cannot hear you? Why is it you worship something that cannot see you, and he cannot benefit you with anything? So with this, he wanted his father to think about what he's doing. So we see the fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam was upon his natural state, and he wants his father to be understanding of the fact that what he's doing is wrong. And then his father rejects the idea. But then Ibrahim alayhi salam continues and he says, Ya abati, inni qad ja'ani min al-ilmi ma lam ya'tik, fattabi'ni ahdika siratan sawiyya. And then he says to his father again, and this it seems as though from the ayat that he did not want to expose to him that he was a prophet. First he tried to logically help him understand the fact that what he's doing is wrong. Now secondly, after he saw the fact that his father is not answering the call, he says to him, it has come to me from knowledge that which has not come to you. So follow me upon the path that I am together. So he in this case tells him and he allows him to understand the fact that to me has come knowledge that which has not come to you. Meaning the knowledge from Allah, al-wahi from Allah Azza wa Jal, which I understand that there is a difference between tawheed and shirk. So keep away from that. But the father again, he rejects this idea, and he says to his father, Ya abati, la ta'budu shaytan, inna shaytana kana lirrahmani asiyya. And then in this statement we understand that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he took it a step further. And he says to him that you are worshipping the devil. So you could understand first and foremost, he came to him logically, where he helped him, and this is also asalib. These are ways in which we could understand how to give da'wah, how to approach individuals. So sometimes you would say to the individual logically that brother, place this upon the table, and he might not understand that. Then you might want to go further in detail, giving him other indications of why he should place it on top of the table. So his father in this case, even although he did not understand that the fact that these idols cannot hear you nor can they see you, then he moved on to say to him the fact that I am a prophet from Allah, and to me has come revelation, and listen to me and follow the same path as myself. And he rejects him again. And then he says to him the third time, Ya abati la ta'budu shaytan. He says to him, O father, do not worship the shaitan. Inna shaytana kana lirrahmani asiyya. Indeed, the shaitan is to Allah Azza wa Jal an individual who has sinned. So from this we understand that Ibrahim alayhi salam is used the method of trying to help him understand logically, then to help him understand the fact that he's a messenger from Allah, and now he's trying to use a method in which he could understand that this thing that he's worshipping is the devil, it's a shaitan, and keep away from it. But again, the father, he doesn't agree with him. He rejects him. And look at the fourth statement that he says. He says, Ya abati, inni akhafu an yamassaka adhabun min ar-Rahman fatakuna lish-shaytani waliya. And then he says to his father, O father, I fear for you now. So he tried logically and he didn't listen. And he tried to tell him that he was a messenger, he didn't listen. And then he told him the fact that the shaitan, that this thing that you're worshipping is a shaitan, and he still didn't listen. And now he says to him, Akhafu an yamassaka adhabun min ar-Rahman. Now I fear the fact that the punishment would come to you from the one who is merciful. So in this case he is using methods And we see the fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he didn't leave his adab, he didn't leave his good morals with his father, but rather he continued. And here we see where the Quran, it describes the reaction of the father with Ibrahim alayhi salam. How did the father react with him? Rather, his father says to him, "Wahjurni maliya." He uses words that are very, very harsh. And then in this case, the ayah describes it, and he says, قَالَ أَرَاغِبٌ أَنْتَ عَنْ آلِهَتِي يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ. Are you an individual who does not want to follow the worshipping of the idols as our forefathers did so? لَإِن لَمْ تَنْتَهِ or لَإِن لَمْ يَنْتَهِ, then what? لَأَرْجُمَنَّكَ وَهْجُرْنِي مَلِيًّا. That if you do not move away from these statements that you are making, then I am either going to stone you or I am going to kick you out from my house forever and good. So in this case, the father has taken a very harsh approach. We understand the fact that when the son or the daughter, when they come and reach a level of disobedience where the father cannot take it, then the last thing he would say to him, leave my house, don't come to it again. And this is a stage which Ibrahim alayhi salam had reached with his father. And his father had said to him, لَأَرْجُمَنَّكَ, I will either stone you, or the fact that you leave my house and you don't come back. But the adab and the moral of Ibrahim alayhi salam, it continued, and he said to his father, Salamun alayk. He said to him, peace be upon you, O my father. سَأَسْتَغْفِرُ لَكَ رَبِّي, I will ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive you. إِنَّهُ كَانَ بِي حَفِيًّا, that indeed my Lord to me is very merciful. So in this case, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he continued and he said to him, I send to you peace, I make dua for you that Allah forgives you. But in this case we see the fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he tried with his family and he tried with his father, and his father rejected this idea of accepting his deen and reject the idea of leaving the worshipping of the idols, now Ibrahim alayhi salam, now he moves out to his community. And he goes to his community. And then he says to his community and the people that were worshipping the idols, مَا هَذِهِ تَمَاثِيلٌ الَّتِي أَنْتُمْ لَهَا عَاكِفُونَ. He approaches the community and he says to them, what are these pictures or what are these statues that you are sitting around and you're worshipping? What are these things? And then they would say, the nation said to him, وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا لَهَا عَابِدِينَ. We found our forefathers to be worshipping these stones, these idols. So we see this conversation. First it was with his father, and he tried with his father again and again. We tried with his father again and again. But his father eventually kicked him out of his house. And he told him to leave. And now we see the fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he doesn't give up. He doesn't give up the word of Allah, but rather now he goes out to the community and he says to them that what are these things that you are worshipping? And then they turn around and they say to him the fact that, oh Ibrahim, that this is something that which our forefathers used to do and this is what we do also. And Ibrahim says to them, and he gives them a very hard-hearted answer. He gives them a very strong answer. And he says, قَالَ لَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. He says to him very clearly, and he says, O community, O this nation, O these villagers, kuntum, all of you, antum, wa aba'ukum, and your fathers, fi dalalin mubin, you're upon clear misguidance. So he rejects their idea straight away, and he gives them a very harsh answer, and he says, you and your fathers and your forefathers, whatever they worshipped, everything is dalalin mubin. It's upon clear misguidance, and it's not righteousness. And then in this case, the community answered to him and they say, قَالُوا أَجِئْتَنَا بِالْحَقِّ أَمْ أَنْتَ مِنَ اللاعبين. He goes, have you come with something that is truthful, or are you playing with us? Are you playing with this idea of us worshipping these gods? And then in this case, the community become upset with Ibrahim alayhi salam. What's the time? How much time do we have? Khalas, we'll finish it. And then Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says, قَالَ بَلْ رَبُّكُمْ وَرَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الذي فطرهن وأنا على ذلكم من الشاهدين وأنا على ذلكم من الشاهدين. And then Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says, but rather my Lord and your Lord is the one who created the heavens and the earth, and I am upon that a witness. And then Ibrahim alayhi salam, he leaves with them a small idea. He says to them, وَتَاللَّهِ لَأَكِيدُنَّ أَصْنَامَكُمْ بَعْدَ أَن تُوَلُّوا مُدْبِرِينَ. That he said to them that you would find your, let's say your statues in a state after that which you leave, or you will become entrapped, or your statues will become entrapped. And he gave them a small hint as to what is going on with Ibrahim alayhi salam and in his mind. So we see the fact that there came a time within inside the village where all the people, they left their place of worship and they went to the village where they were celebrating a particular occasion. And in Ibrahim alayhi salam, and like we said, he's a young boy, he's a young man, he goes to this place of worship and he takes either an axe or he takes an hammer, and he goes to this place of worship and he starts to break down all of these idols. He starts to break them down. And then فَجَعَلَهُمْ جُذَاذًا إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ يَرْجِعُونَ. And the Quran says that he made them all into pieces except from the big idol. He left that so that the people would come back to it. And then what he did, and other narrations say, the fact that the villagers, when they left, they had left in front of their alihah, their gods, they had left in front of them food and drink, and they had left in front of it meat. And he said to them, مَا لَكُمْ لَا تَأْكُلُونَ. When he went into this place of worship, he said to them, why is it? What's wrong with you individuals? What's wrong with you idols? Why aren't you eating? He spoke to them, saying to them, why aren't you eating? Why aren't you moving? And then he took this hammer, or he took this axe, and he went up to these idols and he broke them. And he turned them into pieces, جُذَاذًا إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ يَرْجِعُونَ. Except from the big one, so that the individuals would come back and they see the big one still standing. And there are other narrations that mention the fact that he placed the axe, or he placed this hammer upon the shoulder of the big idol. So all the villagers, when they did come back and they did see the fact that they would come back to the place of worship, and they came to it and they did see the fact that they're all broken and the only one that's left is the big statue itself. And in this case they said, قَالُوا مَنْ فَعَلَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا. They turned around and they said to each other, who did this to our gods? Who did this to our statues? And إِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Indeed, the one who has done it has oppressed us in many ways. So they became upset with the fact that all these idols are broken. And they understood the fact that these are our gods, and who could do this to our gods? And then one of them amongst them, he said, قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا فَتًى يَذْكُرُهُمْ يُقَالُ لَهُ Ibrahim. And in this case they shouted and they said, there is a boy who always mentions these gods and he talks against our gods, and they call him Ibrahim. And then they mentioned and they said, and the Quran describes it, and it says, قَالُوا فَأَتَوْا بِهِ عَلَىٰ أَعْيُنِ النَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْهَدُونَ. And then in this case they said that bring this man amongst the people, amongst this court, so that the people can see who this boy is, the one that's breaking these idols, who's broken these idols, and he's left this big idol in a state, and he's left this axe, or he's left this hammer in the hands of this big idol. قالوا, once Ibrahim alayhi salam, he comes and they bring him to the court and they bring him amongst all these individuals, they say to him, قالوا أأنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم. Is it you, O Ibrahim, that has done this to our gods, our statues? Is it you that has broken them? Is it you that has left them in this state? قال بل فعله كبيرهم هذا فاسألوهم إن كانوا ينطقون. We understand the cleverness of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we understand how sharp he was as an individual. That when the Quran describes his words, we understand from it the fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam really wanted them to understand the logic behind it. He says to them, قالوا بل فعله كبيرهم. He says, rather not me, it's this big one that has broken all of these idols. هذا, this one here, فاسألوهم, ask them. Meaning, ask these judada, ask these broken little idols here, ask them who broke them, and ask the one who's standing who broke them. So in this case, he wanted them to think the fact that these gods that they are worshipping, they cannot even speak, they cannot even hear, they cannot even answer the fact that, who broke them, and they cannot even eat the food that they've placed in front of them. And then he says to them, "In kanu yantiqun," only if they are able to speak, ask them. And they don't speak. And he cannot ask them because they will not reply to them. And then they turned around, and the Quran describes their position, and it says the fact that they were in shame and their heads were down. They were in shame and their heads were down. مَا هَؤُلَاءِ يَنْطِقُونَ. They are not able to speak. They are not able to hear. So someone amongst them from the back of the crowd, he shouted and he says, قَالُوا حَرِّقُوهُ وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ فَاعِلِينَ. He says, he shouted, he goes, "Burn Ibrahim, وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ, and give victory to your idols." And the ajib thing is that the idols themselves cannot give themselves victory. The idols require individuals to give them victory. So here the Quran describes it very well, and it says, "Wansuru alihatakum." This individual says, give victory to your idols, meaning you stand up and help these idols. In kuntum fa'ilin, if you were to do anything, then burn him. So what did Ibrahim alayhi salam do? All he did was he reminded them of Allah. He reminded them of not to worship other than Allah. He called them to Allah Azza wa Jal. But we find the fact that all of these individuals, they were ignorant and they were arrogant and they were foolish, and they did not want to accept the words of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So when he said, this individual amongst them, "Harriquh, burn him," then what they did in return was the fact that they agreed to this. So all of them agreed to the fact that let's burn Ibrahim alayhi salam. We'll stop there. While we finish it. But what about the fast? I'm very hungry. Tomorrow? Inshallah. So we'll just finish it, where we'll slight more, where they dig this hole into the ground. And every individual, especially with the women are always ahead of the game. They gather all the wood, and they gather wood inside this hole, and they create a fire. And the fire is so harsh, so strong, that the words Jahim were used in the Quran that are similar to the hellfire itself. And the historians write that if the birds would fly over it, the bird would fall into it because of its heat. And that's how extreme. And now they need to throw Ibrahim into the fire. How do they do that? What do they do? I request that the brothers come a little early. Today was a very slow start. Inshallah, we complete the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and how he meets Namrud and what happens with Namrud. And inshallah, we'll complete it all tomorrow. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين. Inshallah, request the brothers that they come early. The other thing is, inshallah, stay quiet when the dars is happening, because it's a nuisance and it's also disturbance. So inshallah, engage in dhikr.